It's funny how the people who've spent years making you feel like you're the second best can suddenly remember your number when they need something. The worst part of it all, they're your so-called family. And with the involved emotions, you can't even help it. And with those overwhelming emotions, you're bound to make mistakes. At least that seems to be the truth in my case, since I can't shake off the feeling that I've made a pretty big mistake. And this is exactly why I'm here. Well, let's start with an introduction before getting into the ugly parts of things. I'm Freida, and I can't stop feeling like an emotional fool because I think my family might just have used me. Let me give you a brief about my family dynamic so that you can understand why I'm feeling so. Just like any small, happy family, I have pretty ignorant parents and a younger sister who never fails to get on my nerves. Well, here's a correction. Parents who are ignorant only to me cause apparently they can't get enough of showering their younger daughter with affection. See, there's my childhood in a single line, 'cause growing up, I was the one left in the shadows, while my sister Ariana basked in all the love and attention my parents failed to give me. Do I sound like a jealous witch? That's not actually the case, but if you grew up the way I did, craving your parents' attention every moment of the day, you ought to grow up bitter towards them. You must be wondering why my parents loved Ariana a little extra. No, scratch that, a lot extra than me. It was all because of no apparent fault of mine, and other than the fact that I was born weak, and my parents had to work really hard to take care of me. I was kept in the NICU for about a month. I was underweight, I was very underweight. But there was nothing wrong with me, it was just one of those instances where parents had to be extra cautious as compared to normal babies. I guess I consumed a lot of energy and time of my parents than I would have normally demanded. Maybe they held it against me in some way. Or maybe they just liked Ariana better, just because she was the perfect right from the moment she was born. Unlike me, Ariana was a perfectly healthy baby, whom my parents could not stop swooning over the moment they brought her home. I don't even blame them. Ariana was adorable, and even I could not help but be charmed by her bright eyes. But then years would pass, and nothing seemed to change. My parents were still obsessed with Ariana like she was just born yesterday, while me, I seemed to be forgotten chapter in their life whom they were just bearing expenses for. I don't even have a problem with my parents showering Ariana with all that love and affection. I love my sister, so don't take me the wrong way. My problem is that all of this affection came at the cost of me feeling like I don't even exist to them. Couldn't they have just tried a bit to give me even a little share of all the love they gave Ariana? Was that too much to ask for? So you can guess how all this ignorance and incidents that clearly showed how my parents loved Ariana, it might have affected my little mind. I tried to do everything in my power to get their attention. I worked hard in school and topped my classes thinking they would finally appreciate it. But instead, I got assigned the task of handling Ariana's countless extracurricular activities and running errands for them, while my achievements were barely acknowledged. Even when I graduated from the top of the school, all my parents cared about was how Ariana was feeling about her upcoming dance recital. They barely acknowledged my achievement beyond a quick congratulations before shifting their focus entirely to her. I'd hoped this milestone would finally earn me the attention I longed for, but instead I found myself organizing the catering of Ariana's event and making sure her dress was perfect. So you guys can guess why, as soon as I got a good college far away from home, I took it without a second thought. By then, I'd accepted that my parents would never see me in the same light as Ariana. It was like she was the star of their show, while I was merely a background character, so I stopped trying to please them with all my achievements and I just moved away to college. They probably didn't even have any problem with it because they didn't even care enough about what became of me. And as much as I would like to forget all this past trauma, it followed me into my adult years. And I still can't help but feel this void in my life that could have only been filmed by family. But obviously that's not possible now. Because after my college, I got a pretty good job here, and I've made a good life for myself. Other than the family I grew up craving, I have everything. My contact with my parents and sister is pretty minimal, and I only visit my hometown on holidays or occasions. It's just that I check up on them just enough to know what's going on with them and tell them about my life. Not that they care much. So you can imagine my surprise when my mother called me out of the blue 3 days ago. I was a bit taken aback since it was usually me who called them, and they rarely checked up on me of their own accord. But as soon as I picked up her call, it was crystal clear to me that this was no ordinary checkup, because my mother was crying on the other end of the phone. Even I got panicked for a second, assuming the worst before I even asked her what had happened. She would just continue crying and told me how my father had an accident a day before and needed immediate surgery, but they didn't have the money for it. Well, guys, at this moment, I was obviously taken back and asked her how it happened. My mom, she just kept on crying and said, "Oh, please send the money as soon as you can." I told her I would just book the next flight home and come there to take care of the situation. And at this, my mother just cried and told me how they cannot wait for me to get home as the doctor needs to operate now, or the situation might get a bit complicated. I know, it sounds so stupid now, but at the moment I could not think of anything else but my father's well-being. So in a hurry, I transferred the amount to my mom's account. It was a pretty huge amount and put a large dent in my savings. But all that did not matter to me much at the moment. Right at that moment, I booked a flight back home. But the earliest I could get was 2 days later. I still booked it because I wanted to be home to support my family as soon as possible. But then something weird happened. I'd been in touch with my mother about my father's situation since the call that day. And my mother had told me how the surgery was a success, but my father still needed to stay in the hospital for a few days. Amongst all this chaos, I could not tell her that I was coming home until yesterday. So yesterday, I told my mother that I would be home soon, and then I could help her take care of my father. Her reaction was not at all what I was expecting, because as soon as I told her that, her tone changed from that of concern to a cold, stern voice that said I could not come there. I was taken aback and asked her what the heck she meant. And she just talked about how my father was feeling better than before, and I did not need to interrupt my job and everything by coming home because of this. I mean, it's just not just me, right, who finds this suspicious? Come on. Because in the next moment, I tell my mom that I had already booked the flight, so it was simply not a problem, but my mom was very, very adamant on the fact, saying that there's simply no need for me to come home. It was like she was literally begging me not to come there, and I could not help but feel a bit suspicious. Another thing that was weird, I asked to talk to my father on a video call, but my mother seemed to be against it. She tells me how it was not good for my father to use gadgets and devices at this moment, so I could meet him when I came home for the holidays. Well, this just added to my suspicion. I mean, the holidays were almost a month away, and she wanted me to wait till then to meet my sick dad? Isn't that fishy? I mean, come on. Like, if my father was actually in the hospital like my mother is claiming, wouldn't she want all the help she could get? Especially when I myself was offering to be on a flight. Also, I had not heard from Ariana on the whole thing. I mean, you ought to have talked to your own sister for comfort or support if your father was in the hospital. I don't know, but this whole thing just seems too fishy to be true. I mean, it all just feels like some elaborate trap that my family has set up against me, and I can't shake the feeling that my mother might be lying to me about the whole thing. Now, I feel like I have made a big mistake sending such a large sum of money without asking too many details. But what could I have done? I was overcome with panic thinking about my father at the moment, and I was too confused. Though I've told my mom that I had canceled my flight and would meet her on the holidays. And I haven't actually canceled the flight, which is in a few hours. I'm still thinking it would be best for me to go because this whole thing is too fishy, and I can't put my mind to rest unless I see the whole thing for myself. I mean, the money I sent to them was a huge amount. I can't help thinking that, well, what would my parents want if all of this was just an elaborate lie? But let's just hope that it's not. This is what brings me here, sharing my family story and years of trauma with a bunch of internet strangers, because I could actually use some of your outside perspective on this whole thing. So guys, what do you think? Am I the a-hole for doubting my parents' intentions? Or am I right with my suspicions, and should I actually go home to check up with, well, what's going on? I'm honestly pretty confused right now. My flight, it's in a few hours, and I really need to make a decision. Update number 1. Hey guys, it's Freida again, and I'm here to update you on some pretty crazy stuff. Well, let me get into it. I know it's only been a day since my initial post, but I can't help writing this because I found something out. And I might honestly be losing my mind over it, all because I can't believe how low people can stoop to get what they want. But before I actually start this and let all the crazy emotions out, I just want to thank you guys for all the support and advice that I've gotten in such a short time. The response is honestly crazy, and I did not expect it, so thank you. There were also people bashing me and calling me the a-hole for doubting my own parents. I guess I don't even need to say anything to you guys because this update would be enough to prove how I've been right to doubt my parents from the start. Yes, all my suspicions were indeed right. And for those of you wondering, I did make a big mistake when I transferred a major chunk of my savings to my mom in the name of some medical emergency, because honestly the truth came forward. Well, let me just pick it up from where I left it off a day before. As you guys remember, I was pretty confused about whether to go to my hometown and check if my mother was telling the truth or not. A lot of you supported my suspicions and suggested I need to go and check it out. So I did, only to be met with the craziest truth that there could possibly be. Are you ready for this? I reached my hometown after some long hours of flights, and obviously my family had no clue that I was coming. And because of this, I had no idea which hospital my father could have been in. So clueless, I showed up at the only place someone from my family was sure to be at, my parents' house, and I have still not recovered from what I witnessed. As soon as I knocked on the door, I was met with the most shocking sight because it was my father who opened up. Spoiler alert, he looked healthy and hearty, and by the looks of it, this man could not have had surgery in a month. There was no injury, no bandages, nothing that would indicate a recent medical emergency. But to say I was the most shocked person there would be wrong. As soon as he saw me, the color drained from my father's face, and he went rigid for a second, staring at me with wide eyes. Then it all became clear to me that in that second, and I did not waste a moment as I stormed inside the living room where my mother was sitting. I started shouting at them both for lying to me. They were both too shocked to even speak when I asked them what they would do with such a large sum of money if there was no medical emergency. They tried to come up with some weak excuse, lame, and how some expenses needed to be paid and yada yada yada, but I was, buying none of what they were laying down because I could see the lies clearly plastered on their faces. And that's when I noticed that Ariana was not there. So I also asked him where the hell Ariana was, and whether she was also involved in all this mess, and of course she was, because after all the hesitation and empty excuses, the truth was finally revealed. Not only was Ariana involved in this, she was the root cause of all of it. Who would have guessed it? Soon enough, my mother finally admitted that they did not need the money for a medical emergency at all. Apparently Ariana had planned a vacation, and they had come up with the whole story of getting money from me since they could not afford it themselves. Well, you can imagine how furious I was. I mean, come on. While I was worried sick about my father's ailing health, so much so that I sent a chunk of my own savings without a second thought, they were all planning how Ariana would be enjoying out there at some island or something. Who could be so selfish and cruel to use someone's genuine concern for the sake of enjoyment? Well, I was angry out of my wits, and I took action according to that. I told my parents that they should return my money back to me because I'll sue them for this betrayal. At this, my parents tried to apologize, but all this did not matter to me anymore. It was all just hollow apologies. I even tried calling Ariana to confront her, but her phone seemed to be out of service because I just couldn't reach her. So with one last warning to pay the money back, I headed to leave the house. But my fate wanted to subject me to more misery because there was a terrible storm outside and I could not get a taxi or go to the airport. I even tried to book a hotel room, but apparently every hotel nearby was full. So I had no other option but to spend the night stuck at my parents' house until the weather cleared up. I'm currently locked up in an old room, which has been turned into some storage unit, but anything is better than being outside with my parents who haven't stopped apologizing or bothering me about all of this. I've decided to sue them if they don't pay up. But for now, I can't wait to get out of this house once the storm subsides. Anyways, whatever happens, I will update you. Update number 2. Oh my gosh, guys. As much as I was cursing my stars in the last update for getting me stuck with my parents during such a situation, I can't thank them enough now because I've just found out something crazy that can turn the tables in a second. It's been 2 eventful days since my last update, but let me just bring you guys up to pace without wasting another second. So the storm lasted a day after my last update, and I was honestly driven out of my mind by my parents, but I had decided to ignore them and stick to my room so I don't have to face them much. That's why I did for the whole day. And then, fortunately enough, that storm subsided and the sky cleared. I packed all the little belongings and warned my parents to return my money back within the month and called myself an Uber. It was taking more time than usual, so I just waited in the living room when I heard someone knock at the door. I went ahead to open it up, thinking it to be a neighbor or someone, but I was a bit shocked when I was faced with two police officers. They had come there asking for Ariana, and I was confused out of my wit. That's when my parents came to the door and the police officer started talking to them. I just stood there at the side confused about why the police were looking for Ariana. But as soon as I heard the conversation between the police and my parents, it all became crystal clear. So turns out Ariana's been involved with some shady business that's been scamming people in left and right, and has tricked a lot of people out of their money with some false schemes and all. Well, I was shocked. The last I heard, my sister was working well in her friend's company. Is this the job she was talking about? Then the police asked my parents whether they knew where Ariana was, and then, just as swift actors, both my mom and dad denied knowing anything about her fraud or where she might be at this point. I was shocked. The way that they got the money from me and funded Ariana's whole vacation, they must know where she was. That's when it occurred to me that this was no vacation, you see. No vacation at all, but it was an escape trip so that she could hide from the police. That very meant that my parents knew all about this and were intentionally helping Ariana to go into hiding. It was all clear as crystal, right there in front of me, yet I had to confirm it with my parents, obviously. So, as soon as the police left, after telling my parents to inform them if Ariana had contacted them in any way, I confronted my parents right away about the whole thing. You see, I asked them whether they already knew about the whole thing and had helped Ariana run away with my money. I honestly cannot believe it. Funding Ariana's vacation with my money was one thing, but helping her escape the police using my money was just another height of favoritism. And to my shock this time, my parents did not even try to hide anything and became clear about everything in a jiffy. They told me that yes, they were fully aware of the entire thing and had been helping her evade the authorities. They explained that Ariana's so-called vacation was actually a pretty elaborate escape plan. They even told me that they knew about Ariana's activities while she was doing, but they decided to keep quiet about it since they did not think that it would get this bad. I couldn't believe them. How could they be so blinded that they could not even see the clear line between right and wrong? They tried to justify it all in their own twisted way, saying that Ariana was their daughter, and they had just to protect her. Look at that audacity, talking about protecting a daughter at the cost of betraying another. Well, my parents did not stop there. After coming clean about the whole thing, they had the nerve to ask if I could help them with some more, as Ariana needed some more money to keep herself hidden. I guess this is the only reason they decided to come clean to me, since they wanted to use me further. They even tried to justify it, saying that they knew I cared about Ariana's safety and I should help them with it. I'd honestly lost my marbles. I couldn't believe what was wrong with these people. But before I could say anything, an idea stuck in my mind, and I agreed to their help. I told them that Ariana was my sister, and that even though all of them had wronged me, her safety was obviously priority for me. And I can't even tell you guys how relieved they were. I told them that I'd be back in a day after collecting some funds to help Ariana, and then we could talk to Ariana and figure out a way to hide her further. I wanted to talk to Ariana right then and there, but I knew my parents weren't even that stupid to trust me without some guarantee of help, and I wasn't going to blow my cover to give them a reason to suspect me. So I just left to arrange for the funds, and now finally I'll be able to teach Ariana and my parents a lesson that they had coming for them a long time. What do you guys think? That I'd actually agree to help them do something so crazy and illegal? No way in hell! It's just all three of them have been playing this game for far long, and now I think it's my turn. Final update. Hey guys, it's Freida again. It's been a month since my previous update, and I can finally say that all this drama might be over for good. After my previous update, I went ahead with my plan. I managed to arrange some funds from the savings I'd left. With them, I went back to my parents' house, trying my best to act as though I was genuinely interested in helping. They were obviously happy, thinking I was there to help them, and fortunately for me, they were still clueless about my real intentions. I played along and got them to agree to call Ariana in front of me. Along with my parents, I talked to her myself. She was pretty shocked to hear my voice, but my parents eased her down, telling her how I was helping her with money. During this conversation, I suggested to Ariana how she should actually move her hiding spot so the police can't catch her. She told me that she did not have the money for that, and I assured her that I would arrange it by next week, but before that, we must discuss how she'll move and everything. Through this, I was able to get the exact location Ariana was at. This seemed like the perfect circle of life. See, just like I'd fallen for my mother's trap, Ariana and my parents had fallen for mine. I didn't waste much time. That evening, I left my parents' house and went straight to the police with Ariana's location. Within 2 days, Ariana was arrested and I was back at my own house. Ariana, charged with multiple fraud, and it was clear that her actions had finally caught up with her. The fallout did not end there. My parents were absolutely devastated, and in their desperation they came to me begging for me to bail Ariana out, since they were on the verge of financial ruin and did not have the money to bail her out or even get a good lawyer. I laughed in their faces, saying that I would not bail her out. I mean, why would I bail her out when I was the one who got her arrested? They looked at me in such shock, but I just slammed the door in their faces, telling them that they could go to their favorite child now because honestly, it felt a little liberating all this time. And that was not all. My parents' woes did not end there, as they had to bear all the fines that came with Ariana's punishment. And not having much money themselves, they had to take loan after loan to be able to pay it. Things got so bad that it came to them losing their house since Ariana had taken a loan on it. Homeless and helpless, they turned to me again for help, but I stood my ground and made it clear. I told them, it's not gonna happen. I mean, these were the consequences of their own actions. They were the ones who pushed me away for years just so they could give all their attention to Ariana. And after that, I was ready to help them, but they just betrayed me on top of all that, so this was all on them.